80% of people do not trust in their leader's ability. If you don't see any value in a meeting, just leave it. We're so focused on the communication, like the verbal part of communication, we forget about effective listening as well. We all deserve to be happy and thriving in the workplace. Opportunities are endless. You just got to really test it and see what works for you because everyone's different.
Hello, everybody. Today with me is Chris, and he is seasoned leader and currently CEO with over 20 years of global experience. From aspiring basketball player to executive coach, Chris excels in growth and team building, offering executive coach, team building, team coaching, and corporate workshop. Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today. How about you?
Doing great. I don't know what's the temperature like in Toronto, but here it is like 100 degrees. So I'm basically melting. So, but other than that, it's good. It's good.
Well, in Toronto, we have a lot of humidity as well, so I certainly feel your pain. But here in Canada, winters are very long, so I'm not sure about you, but as soon as we get to this, we've got to embrace it for what it is. Before we know it, it'll be fall, and then we'll be talking about winter again.
Yeah. So the thing is, one very important thing that I want to discuss with you is leadership.
Yes.
Especially right now, like with AI, I think leadership is more important than ever because
Agreed.
You now need to lead these people. You need to manage this, and that's actually, I believe, management and leadership are actually jobs that will not be kind of taken by AI because I don't think people will kind of go with AI. But so my kind of first question, I will have some follow-ups to that. How do you think leaders should spot bad managers with the company? Let's start with that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you will see it over time. I think firstly, there's a difference between a leader and a manager. I think a leader helps you, inspire you to become a better version of yourself. Like I think about all the great leaders that I've worked with, they give you the autonomy, but also hold you accountable to a certain standard to be at your best. They also have a high level of emotional intelligence, which I think is a key part. And to your point around artificial intelligence, regardless of how far we develop with this, there wouldn't be a need for an emotional intelligence piece, which I don't think AI will ever have, the critical thinking piece as well. So good leaders have high emotional intelligence. They allow autonomy. One of the biggest things I see in separating a bad leader from a good leader is that autonomy piece. We have a lot of people who can tend to be micromanagers. And when you micromanage someone, you really stifle their creativity. You're not allowing people to really form into themselves as a leader and allow them to really thrive and have any innovation. And I think that is really negative on people and also on your pride. I've worked with people who have micromanaged me, and it is terrible. It is really, really terrible. And I think that is a huge thing. Also for other great leaders, they're great communicators. You think about all the great leaders, like who's your favorite leader that you've ever seen? Is it a Steve Jobs or someone like that? Or who's someone that automatically comes to mind is a great leader for you that you've seen? Or maybe it's someone that you've worked with.
That's a great question because I restructure a little my tree of leadership recently. But let's say Elon Musk. But let's say Elon Musk for the things that he's doing technically, not like in other things.
Yeah, it's interesting. Have you seen his rules around productivity in meetings that have come out where there was a leak around his...
I do, but I don't remember them. Yeah, something about meetings and...
it was around if you don't see any value in a meeting, just leave it. There was a few other different things there as well. But Elon Musk, and say what you want about the person, visionary. So right there is another thing that's going to set someone else apart. Do they have a strategic vision? Are they able to communicate? That is what is going to set someone apart. The ability to rally people together and bought into a collective vision to move people forward. That's what Elon does really, really well. So that's where you see that communication piece as well. And I think another piece which will really continue to grow, and something that I'm continually developing, and you think of all the great leaders as well, is the ability to storytell. As humans, that's how we relate. I tell you a story and that resonates with you. It can be an analogy of sport, personal life, or whatever it may be. That is a huge piece which is going to enable someone to collectively buy into what you're telling them if you have the ability to storytell. And on the communication piece, I want to mention one thing which I think is critical as well, and something that I talk about a lot, is the ability to listen. We talk so much about verbal communication, but I think if you truly want to be an effective leader, you need to be able to effectively listen. Are you listening to people, or are you waiting for your chance to respond? The more effective you can hear people, the more that they feel valued, the more that they feel heard. That is a key skill. And another part of listening is not just listening, is that acting upon that feedback that people are sharing with you as well. But I think we're so focused on the communication, like the verbal part of communication, we forget about effective listening as well. So those are a few of the things that I think are important when pointing out a good leader to a bad leader. And also one more, I want to add one more. I think the ability to be open to feedback as a leader. So also being able to solicitate feedback as well, and being open to that and not taking that personally. It's something that the sooner you can stop taking things personally, I think the sooner you'll get ahead, and you can share constructive feedback to help people move forward. It's a skill.
Yeah. And that's kind of personal, probably. That's kind of personal question, but like having a leader in the company is probably like one of the highest ROI the company can have.
Yes.
And because it's basically this person can help multiple people's, like one to many. And but the thing that I experienced a lot of the time in a lot of the companies I worked with is that you have the person which is in the position of leadership, which I wouldn't call a leader, but that's like the title. Maybe that's product owner or somebody like that. And he or she completely mismanaged people, do not understand where we go in, how to talk with people, how to understand the feedback and all these kind of things. And I don't have the problem, like I can understand that not all people are leaders, and it takes time, it takes dedication, it takes a lot of time, like working with people like you. But the question I have is why the CEO or the founder do not see something like that? Why that person is continue to work in this company? And so my question is how somebody in the position of the CEO or the founder can understand that that we need to, for example, fire or talk with that person, because most of the time founders do not see the perspective of the employees, even though leader is employee in some way. But so how somebody like CEO is listening to this, and how they can understand that?
It's a great question, and it reminds me of a statistic I saw recently. I think it was around 80% of people do not trust in their leader's ability. Something like that. I think it was a US-based statistic. But I think it highlights a couple of different facts. Firstly, to your point, I think people are put in positions for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they may be great at sales or many other different things. But typically it's they're good in sales, they're a high achiever in that place. But does that mean they're going to be great at leading people? Not always the case. Leading people is a privilege. It is one of the most challenging but also rewarding jobs that you can take on. And your sole responsibility is to empower and uplift and truly unlock people's potential. Are you truly looking at it that way? Are people looking at serving their people in that way? Clearly they're not. And I think it also acknowledges that we have a leadership development gap. A lot of people in those roles aren't getting the development they need supported. I think the old method of doing classroom style type leadership development, that's no longer the way to do it. We need a different approach to leadership to help bridge that gap a little bit. And I think to your point around people, why aren't CEOs doing it? I think sometimes they're just not simply aware, or the communication is not flowing through to them. And at the end of the day, to your point around a CEO, leadership, I always believe leadership really flows down. So ultimately it falls on the leader to ensure that they have the best possible leaders within that organization. But that is not always the case. And sometimes, let's just say it, there's favoritism out there. If the CEO is friends or has a relationship with that toxic leader, that sometimes they'll be bared a little bit further than they should be, to be fair as well. And some people are in leadership roles for completely the wrong reasons. So I think if you are dealing with someone who is a toxic leader or is not giving you the support you need, try and speak up. I know that's easier said than done. As someone who's been in that place myself, it is challenging. It really is. And it's just not as simple as that. But we spend 1/3 of our lives at work. 1/3 of our life. Let that sink in. We all deserve to be happy and thriving in the workplace. So when you're looking at jobs, make sure you're looking at the leader that you're going to be working with. Are they going to inspire you every single day to become the best version of yourself? If that's not true, reconsider it, because the leader has more of an integral role than your therapist. At the end of the day, that is the person you're going to be spending the most amount of time, either in person or in Zoom. Make sure they inspire you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I left that company.
Because, yeah, see, exactly to that point, right?
Because at some point I thought, like, it's not worth it. Like it's not worth it. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the money. Even though I had a great salary, I really missed that salary. To be honest, but
it's just money, right?
Yeah. Like I asked myself, like, when I will be like 70 years old, will I miss these days? And I said no. So I'm like, okay, that's maybe it's time to move on. And but I want to slightly pivot towards the thing that we started with, is AI. Now AI is everywhere. It's difficult not to read about AI. But how do you think leaders should use AI, and if they should use AI at all?
Again, another great question. I think there's a lot of talk around AI. You have a look on LinkedIn, everyone's talking about it. Everyone fears it a little bit as well. But I was asked this question. I think it's really similar to the internet back in early 2000s. For those who are young enough to remember, I'm showing my age. I was a little younger then in my teenage years, but there was this doom and gloom that it was going to ruin our lives, similar to what we're going through with AI right now. But can you imagine life without the internet? You and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now, right? And I really, truly believe in 5 to 10 years' time, with space, time, some governance is going to be required as well to ensure that we have a collaboration with AI. I think it'll be an integral part of it. And for me, I'm using certain elements of AI. I think there's huge amount of potential for it to take those manual tasks and automate it. So let AI do the heavy lifting for those little manual things, but you need that human touch for the critical thinking, the emotional intelligence, and those type of things to ensure that those are done in the way that you need to be. So I think if you're still unsure about it, educate yourself a little bit about AI. There's so many incredible resources. I think Harvard, Google, I've seen all these different types of school offering AI education just get a basic understanding of it, or follow some great creators on AI, and then just test a few different things, see what works, but have a look at, I would say, do a little bit of an audit of where you're spending a lot of time with manual processes, where you can eliminate some of those times, and then look at it from that lens. And I want to add to that, I think it's really good. You can use it with a little bit of self-coaching. You can use like ChatGPT or Copilot, Perplexity, or one of those different tools that I'm using a little bit as well. Just ask some questions around some of the challenges that you may be facing as well. So I think the opportunities are endless. You just got to really test it and see what works for you, because everyone's different.
Exactly. And I 100% agree on the coaching side. I use GPT to coach myself on sales calls.
There you go.
So I speak and I mean I answer to some predefined questions. That's kind of very useful thing. So I highly recommend to other people to use it as a coaching. But do not try to fool yourself that GPT will do like all the coaching, because the only thing that GPT can do is mimic. It cannot give you like completely different perspective that person working with you directly can tell you, like give you honest opinion about something.
Great point, Ben. I mean, thanks for sharing that. And also, it's unable to read body cues, right? If you're telling it something, but you may be sharing it in a tone where I can tell based on your previous tone, you may be higher or lower. I can automatically say, why is your tone lower when you shared that, versus AI doesn't have the ability. Again, that critical thinking and emotional intelligence is lacking, and always will lack, I believe.
And I wanna end up on some short blitz questions for you.
Far away.
And we'll see how you answer them. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes, 100%.
Every time I talk to somebody from USA, they like yes. Every time I talk with somebody in Europe, they're like no, go to hell.
Great question.
Socks with sandals.
Well, as someone who just got back from a vacation, this is a true story I'm happy to share with you and your audience. I got really badly sunburned because we just started summer here. So after day 2, my toes were really burnt, so I had to wear socks to cover my sunburn for a couple of days. So I was looking pretty glamorous wearing socks and sandals for a couple of days. So yes, but
Great.
no.
That's 100% Czech style. So
Yeah.
Here you will be like home.
Yeah, perfect.
If you would want to have one superpower, what would it be?
I think it's the ability to speak every language. I'm someone who's been fortunate to travel a lot, and I want to continue to travel. I think there's no better education than traveling. Do it, move to the other side of the world, go travel. So good. I think the ability to speak every language, no matter where I went, love to have that.
And if you could have a dinner with one historical or famous figure, who would it be?
Well, it would have to be Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace to the Black Mamba mentality. I wear this band on my arm right here. It says Kobe Bryant. He's one of my idols growing up. I wanted to be a professional basketball player, as you mentioned from the top, and he's someone I've always admired. His mindset on and off the basketball court, and his Mamba mentality is all about getting 1% better every single day. So I wear this on my arm to remember that. So Kobe would be someone I'd want to have dinner with for sure.
Great. And people that are listening and watching this, where they can find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. I post 5 days a week at 8 a.m. Eastern. I share posts about leadership and also personal growth. Feel free to follow me there. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions around leadership or personal growth. I'd love to connect and hear what's going on.
And all links will be down in the description. Thank you, Chris, for your time, for your knowledge, for your wisdom, and to everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.